VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker, and we are kicking it on December 9th. 11-2 Vikings in a season where they were supposed to win 6 or 7 games, far exceeded that. Now on the doorstep of the postseason, the Vikings' magic number is 1. They either got to win themselves next Monday night against the Bears or ask the Los Angeles Rams to lose, and they're in the dance. And yesterday, the Vikings toppled the Falcons 42-21. Right at the edge of the fourth quarter, it was 21-21, and it felt like within 15 minutes of real life time, the game was over, and it was a blowout. And this win was so uniquely fun and compared to years past or games past that, there may have been better Vikings wins against superior opponents or a lot of those close one-score wins over the years. A lot of those are probably more important than this one, but this one was just so damn fun the way it transpired, probably because they were facing their old quarterback. But on the whole, this win was so damn impressive, and I am here to tell you why for the next 10 minutes or whatnot. So the first reason, we'll start at the bottom of the list and work our way up to, kind of why this one was so damn vital, so damn impressive. The first one is the Vikings were shorthanded, and nobody has said too much about that, probably because they're so jazzed about winning emphatically by 21 points against the old quarterback. But let's face it, the Vikings did not have Christian Darrisaw, Ivan Pace, Stephon Gilmore, and then the dudes who have been out for quite some time, J.J. McCarthy, of course, and Mekhi Blackman. So we love to say, whether it's from the Patriots era of Bill Belichick, next man up, and when that happens to your favorite team, you think, you know what, next man up? Well, the Vikings walked the walk. You have the trade for a guy like Cam Robinson that, you had to spend a mid-round pick on. Well, that's netting dividends. And then the depth for when Ivan Pace goes out. No, that's cool. We got Camus Grugier-Hill. We got Jamin Davis. So all of these guys stepping up in the face of injury. Fabian Moreau didn't get too cooked yesterday when Stephon Gilmore was out. So this was kind of a throwback to the wins over the Texans and the 49ers when Hawkinson was out, Addison was out for one of those games, Ivan Pace was even out. And it just didn't matter against the Texans because they crushed them. And then against the Falcons, who Texans are probably a little bit better team right now. The Texans haven't been quite as good as they were last year. But with these injuries piling up, or ones that have piled up in the summer, you had reason to be a little anxious. And, can the Vikings beat Kirk Cousins' team with all these injuries? Yeah, they can, and they can do it decisively. So winning shorthanded is an example of walking the walk of next man up. All right, so the next one here, I want to point this out because this is so true, and a lot of it has to do with Sam Darnold, is the Vikings are getting hot at precisely the time that you would want them to get hot, or at least they did for this single game. You'll look back sometimes on the annals of NFL history, and the 2012 Ravens come to mind, a team that wasn't overly great at all in the regular season, but it started to hit a groove in December and then carried that bitch all the way into January and eventually winning the Super Bowl over the 49ers. So we don't know certifiably if this win was like, hey, the Vikings got hot in December and they rode that thing all the way into the blah, blah, blah of the postseason. But if you wanted to request a game for the Vikings to win by 3 scores, you'd want it to start right about now, or last week, or carry it into the Bears week. This is the time. If you could do it all on your own, starting hot, pretty awesome, and then for the middle of the season, you're winning these one-score games. You drop 2 in the middle. This is the time. This is the heat of the NFL season when you want to find your footing, even in the face of all these injuries. And thankfully, for the Vikings' sake, that happened against the Falcons at home on Sunday. So I will continue to point that out until they have a stinker, that this is the moment on the calendar. You ask any football fan, when do you want your team to get hot? It is down the stretch of the season, and there's really no better time to start getting hot than Week 14 because we're not too far away from the postseason. In fact, we are 1 month away. The next one, number 3 on the list, working our way up to number 1, kind of ties into getting hot, but this was the first convincing win in 10 weeks, which is 2.5 months. You will recall, against the Green Bay Packers, September 29th, the Vikings climbed to a 28-0 lead And, we're looking around at each other going, this is fantastic. We're beating everybody's asses. And then after a muffed fumbled punt by Jalen Naylor, everything came crashing down and almost to a, catastrophic level against the Packers. They damn near lost that, but they held on and won. And thereafter, every win since has either been tight, grimy, or just suspense riddled or suspense fueled. And this one, especially in the fourth quarter, wasn't like that. There are a lot of Vikings fans and prominent Vikings themed voices that have said in these last 2 months, you got to step on their throat. And we would love to do that, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. So when you look back at how this season has gone, the first win was a prototypical week 1 win where you just find a way to win. It feels like an extension of the preseason. Then the Vikings beat the 49ers somewhat handily. The scoreboard won't show it as much. And then they crushed the Texans. And then during Packer week, they got up 28-0 before it kind of crumbled in the second half. But we needed to see this, and it just was fabulous timing. It was going up against Kirk Cousins. 10 weeks is a long time in football calendar, and to start to get hot, like I stated a couple moments ago, and then have your first convincing win in 2.5 months against the NFC team in your building is pretty sweet timing. So it was fun to finally watch. You might recall in 2022, every win was by one score. That has not been the case this year. I think that's why we don't consider this team like the 2022 team that felt accidental at times. And that theory was proven correct in the first round of the postseason when Vikings quarterback Daniel Jones helped jettison the Vikings from the postseason. This club flatly feels better, and if you look at any statistical metric, this team is better. It's more balanced, it's not fluky, and it's because you have wins like you did against the Falcons or way back in September against the 49ers, Texans, and Packers. So 2.5 months since a convincing win. You'll recall during the guts of the season after the bye week, 12-7 over the Jaguars. We were like, I guess we'll take it. Do we need to make a quarterback change? That was kind of the talker. Thank God they didn't. Against the Titans, that was also messy. They ended up winning by 10. So you're stacking all of these road wins that feel a little greasy. Even the Colts game, it was like, all right, I guess we'll take it. This was one resounding that we finally felt like we're back. All right, number 2. And I could feel this one coming when all of the goodness on offense started to occur. This team had been on a 5-year-long drought without scoring 40 points in a game. And if you are a student of Vikings history, or if you've been a fan as long as I have or longer, it wasn't unusual back in the day to score 40 points. It has been rather unusual in the last 5 years because it hasn't happened. It was a 2019 game against the Dolphins. I think it was a pretty pronounced Dalvin Cook showing that day at US Bank Stadium. And then that was it. They nibbled at it in December 2019 against the Chargers when they won 39-10. Incidentally, until this season, that was the final time the Vikings had beat a team by 17 points or more. They snapped that streak against the Texans in Week 3. And here we are with Sam Darnold at quarterback, and they've snapped the 40 points in a game drought. And this one, if you want the Vikings to eventually be one of those teams like the Bills right now or the Eagles where they are certified Super Bowl contenders, you need to score 40 points every now and then. There was some, when I was researching this stat over the last few years, it's unholy how few times, 0, that the Vikings had scored 40 points, and then a team like the Cowboys was up by like 20 occasions in the same time frame. So in order to get to deep in the postseason, win a Super Bowl, usually you can't dink around and score, hey, we had a great week, we scored 28 points. No, you got to run up the score every now and then, if only to prove that you are superior to the competition. Now, this one just so happened that the Falcons' secondary was horrid, and then tip of the cat, somebody at halftime on the Vikings coaching staff, or maybe a player on the offensive line, they got their shit together, because the pass rush of the Falcons, which isn't horrid, but also isn't known like, oh my God, we're going to play the Falcons defensive line, they were getting to the Vikings and Sam Darnold, rattling him, disabling the passing game from getting cooking. You might recall in the first quarter, if Jefferson had a target, It surprised me. And I remember thinking, like, they're not even targeting Justin Jefferson today. It's going to be one of those games. 3 hours later, 2.5 hours later, Jefferson had his best game of the season. Somebody figured out the offensive line woes in the first half, fixed them, and that enabled Darnold to totally cook and finding Addison for 3 touchdowns and then Jefferson. I was telling anybody that's been around for a while that this felt like a throwback to the Vikings teams of 2002, 2003, 2004, and maybe a little bit of 2005, where splashy big plays were not a surprise. It's just the way we did things. And then, hey, if you're going to let up 350, 400 yards to the other team on defense, I suppose we're going to outscore you anyway. That's how this win felt. So, we'll take a little bit better defense. But and it was also cool because Mike Tice was at the game. He spoke to fans at, I think it was the second or third quarter, and this felt like a Mike Tice victory where you used offense, and more offense to offset a defense that wasn't necessarily stellar. So tip of the cap to everybody involved, and especially Sam Darnold, who had the 5 touchdowns, the best game of his career, the first Vikings quarterback to throw 5 touchdowns in a game since, you guessed it, 2004, Dante Culpepper. Things are cooking. All right, the final thing that I have, and if you want to remember one thing from the show, it is this. Had the Vikings lost to the Falcons and fallen to 10-3, it would not have been that big of a deal. There wouldn't be not any credible doomsdayist thinking to say, oh my God, they lost to the Falcons. Now they're only 10-3. What are we going to do? You'd have folks that would say, hey, this team is fraudulent. I can't believe they lost to their old quarterback. But at 10-3, had the Vikings lost, it would have been, the magic number would have remained close to what it is. You need to win next week and the Rams lose. So what I want to say about this win is that it was absolutely vital, necessary, important, crucial, because you needed to beat Kirk Cousins to show the symbolism of we did the right thing. Now, Cousins is in a rut, and I can't figure out if he's ever going to get back out of it. These are 4 poor games in a row. Now, this one wasn't totally dreadful like last week's stinker against the Chargers and the week before that, before his bye. Cousins wasn't very good either. He might be a 36-year-old guy who's recovering or recovered from an Achilles injury and never quite regained form. That happens. Looks like it's happening to Aaron Rodgers right now. But organizationally or foundationally as the Vikings front office, or you as the Vikings fan who's a part of the culture here, is this win needed to happen because it shows we made the right decision by turning the page, drafting J.J. McCarthy, hedging the bet with Sam Darnold as your bridge quarterback, who looks, leaps and bounds better than a bridge quarterback right now. We probably could have got over a loss and said, yeah, well, the Falcons had a good afternoon, back to the drawing board for the Vikings. But to show the world, to prove to themselves, for Sam Darnold, for everybody associated with the Vikings, turning the page on the Cousins era emphatically happened on Sunday. And it really worked out great that it turned out to be a relative ass-kicking, because 21-21, right at the edge of the start of the fourth quarter, and then you go on this spree of scoring touchdowns. By the time folks were walking out of the stadium or you were done watching it in your living room, you were like, damn, that was a sweet win. That's what you needed to do to Cousins personally, to show to him, we made the right decision by going in a new direction. Thanks for all you did. And the Vikings emphatically did it. So that's the whole show there in a nutshell on the 5 items, why this thing was so damn important. But I also want to call out one final thing that came to mind during the episode here. On this show from, let's say, probably late March when we warmed up to the Sam Darnold signing, everybody that joined me as a guest, me personally, we said, we hinted, we flirted. My bold take was that Sam Darnold was going to play too well this season, that there's going to be camps that didn't want to let him go, and there's going to be camps that say, you know what, no matter what, we go with J.J. McCarthy. That was my prediction, that Darnold was going to play too good. Seems like that's happening. But what we were saying, various folks that came on the show, is that Sam Darnold could have a Baker Mayfield-like season and totally reclaim his career. Well, I am here to report he has done that, and he is shattering what Baker Mayfield did last year, at least statistically. Mayfield was quite good. Sam Darnold, after this game, is like in the top 7 of any quarterback metric that you want to pull up. So not only did he fundamentally script this Baker Mayfield reclamation season, Sam Darnold is exceeding it. Now, where he parlays this into a new contract or stays in Minnesota for whatever price they come up with, that remains to be seen. I don't know of NFL teams right now that would give Sam Darnold 3 years, $120 million, and say, you are the guy. We don't even need a rookie quarterback. In all likelihood, Darnold's going to do exactly what he is doing right now, and that is being a really good bridge quarterback to Shadur Sanders, Jalen Monroe, any of those guys that you think are going to be drafted in the first round. That's an off-season problem to figure out. But right now, all of those predictions about a Baker Mayfield, season, Sam Darnold is doing those and more. All right, we'll be back Wednesday talking with Josh Fry. Not sure what will be on the agenda. Probably some Bears preview, but we'll get there. That's all I got. Skol, baby.